Oh boy. Welcome back everyone to another video. This video is going to get into the weeds about feedback I have for the current system with MasterModes in the PT right now. I realize that this may not be content that most of you may understand fully, but I will try my best to explain it. This video is also directed directly towards the CIG combat balance team, as well as the individuals working in and around the flight model. Please understand that this feedback comes from many years of playing the game in all of its forms, and it comes from the bottom of my heart to say thank you so much, guys, for spending the time to develop and execute on this flight model. So, to get started, I'd like to speak first about what MasterModes gets right before we start talking about things that maybe we can improve on. The first thing I'd like to say about MasterModes is that fundamentally at its core, the mechanics that the system is utilizing, in my opinion, are sound. The differences between the afterburner speed limits in SCM and the regular SCM, the differences in the sphere of control of influence or how fast the ship can move based on different vectors, I think is a great idea, and it solves a lot of issues that the previous flight model system just couldn't solve, right? When it comes to wiggling and that kind of stuff, I'm sure that we can find numbers and tunings which make the game feel smooth and fast without making it feel herky-jerky, I guess is the best way to put it, or making it feel too right, left, too much of a snappy movement system. What I also like to say about MasterModes is I actually genuinely like the differences between the QCM mode, or the cruise mode, and the regular SCM. The differences in time switching, in my opinion, make sense. You have to make the choice to stay in fights or to leave. This adds a lot of cool gameplay for the missile system, because now with the higher speeds and disengagements, perhaps missiles now have a place in combat to keep people forced down into SCM and actually engage their targets. Also, I'd like to say that the full pitch control that MasterModes is going with, in my opinion, is something that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and I think strongly that it feels good. Pitch control is just more natural. Most people who play flight combat games aren't thinking about moving on the 45. It's something, a bit of a knowledge barrier, I guess you could say. Pitch control is much more intuitive, it's much more fun, it feels better, it looks better. In my opinion, it's just a better choice, right? And I'd also like to say that the spread system for weapons, in my opinion, was the right decision. Having less fixed assist and more of a cone of fire, letting bullets saturate the target zone, allowing for closer range fights to happen, because not from fixed assist issues we had in the previous model where the weapons are so accurate you could actually exploit the auto aim system and always be out of range. Now it's much more based on saturation of the cone, so even at 1200 meters you're gonna hit, but only 10% of your damage might apply, which is really exciting because it allows us to saturate zones for bigger ships like hammerheads and whatnot, because you don't have to worry too much about trying to pixel accurate everything. Now it's going to be more based on like, okay, the fighter's in that general direction, let's just send a billion bullets his way, right? So you're going to have some kind of turret warfare gameplay that'll be more dynamic now with that system. So, all in all, most of the stuff in MasterModes, in my opinion, is spot on. And that was never my, I guess you could say, my criticism of it, right? Well, let's talk a little bit about my criticism about what, in my opinion, MasterModes is not getting right. So, as it stands right now, Space Combat Maneuvering, or SCM mode, is locked to around the 220 meter per second mode on the Gladius. And then when you go into Afterburner, you're hitting almost 550. This is too much. This is too much. The reason I believe this is because in order for us to have dynamic, exciting, and I guess you could say skill-based dogfighting, we need more breadth of movement area to execute maneuvers in. For example, lead turning is a good example of this. In the previous model in 319, lead turning was truly a skill. I mean, you had to lead turn sometimes at over 10 kilometers just to get in on somebody. And now, even though the 1% of people who play the game are even able to make that maneuver happen, I am not advocating for that to make a return, okay? What I'm asking for is something kind of in between. We went from flying, and this is a good analogy, we went from driving F1 cars on the fastest tracks in the world, where only 1% of the Star Citizen player base was able to execute on those drive skills, to bumper cars with safety locks on them, and nothing in between, right? What I'm advocating for is something kind of a halfway point, to say that, okay, I like the lower speeds, but they're too low. So let's bump them up a little bit. Let's sit around the 450 meter mark for SCM, because this gives us enough breadth of movement to execute on different kinds of maneuvers like lead turns. Let's say you see a target, he's moving in on you, and you want to look towards his movement direction, pull your nose in front of him, and then slip in underneath his turn rate so that you have a rate advantage and you can actually get in on him, right? With the disappearance of tricording, we have a harder time staying close. The idea was with CIG, like, we're going to create the sphere instead of the square box maneuvering, right? For those of you guys who don't understand, square box maneuvering just means that if you add strafe from the bottom and then the right and then the forward, you're going to connect all three different directions and you're going to push yourself basically to the tip of a triangle, if you were to imagine a thruster model like that. But now we have a sphere. And that sphere is not a sphere. Once you go into Afterburner, it becomes an oval, right? This feels weird, like it really does. It doesn't make the game feel good. What we need is most of combat to happen in SCM, right? And in order for that to happen, we need more breadth of movement, because the engage and disengage, the counterplay, the flying defensively, which is a big part of team play, is a very important skill to have, right? And as long as we have the Afterburner mechanic, which is implemented now the way it is, as long as we have 100, 150 meters per second to close on our opponent in Afterburner, then nobody can stay at the ceiling, which means stay facing towards your enemy while backstrafing, right? Because if they try to do this, all you have to do is press the boost and you can go above the SCM and close distance on them. And if they try to boost in reverse and use their retros to pull distance from you, they're gonna hit their ceiling way quicker than you are gonna hit yours, right? That is what I really like about the MasterModes system. However, like I said before, the differences between in boost and out of boost are too great. You need more breadth of movement space. So I would suggest that all SCM across the board for all ships be dramatically increased to around the 450 meter mark, which is a two times increase, or 100% increase from the current SCM speeds now. However, do not change the Afterburner speeds. The differences between Afterburner and SCM still need to be there, but the differences are too vast and it creates for very binary gameplay. So what happens is, when you're flying with a team, the person who just loiters around, flying around, not engaging and keeping their boost high, as soon as one of the people in the fight uses their boost, which happens a lot during fights, let's say their boost is at 80%, and they start to disengage and fly away. Well, because the speed of SCM is 220, and the speed of Afterburner is 500 plus, what ends up happening is, as soon as that person leaves that brawl or leaves that fight, the person just Afterburners behind them and follows them. And there is no possible way that you can get away from that. And this is the problem, is like, you want there to be some counterplay. You want there to be some ability for you to engage, disengage when you're fighting outnumbered and whatnot. The current SCM system is too much skewed towards, I have a numbers advantage, which means I win, right? Which sometimes makes me a little bit sad, because if we want Star Citizen to be a skill-based game, hey Sam, even Sam agrees. If we want Star Citizen to be a skill-based game, we need there to be flexibility in the way these ships function against each other. And if we don't have enough breadth of movement, then we can't have good defensive play, which means ganking or getting outnumbered becomes the meta so quickly that, you know, it kind of sucks a lot of the enjoyment out of getting into the game and really diving in. Secondly, these light fighters are some of the most skill-based ships in the game. They're the highest, one of the highest risk ships, but they should also give out a good reward. If you have the skills to utilize the light fighter the way it should, then you should get the rewards. But it's risky because if you make mistakes, you could die quickly, right? Whereas if you're on a larger vessel, it's much, much more difficult for you all to go down together. And with the Master Mode system, it's going to be a lot more fun for us to engage larger vessels, and larger vessels will have a lot easier time engaging and defending themselves against gangs of fighters. But as it stands right now, bigger is better, and that may not be the best for the game, right? I've spoken about this before at length when I come to talk about the balanced triangle, where the idea is if fighters are effective, they should be effective against a certain class of ship, but they should be ineffective against others. So for example, an 890 jump probably shouldn't be at a serious risk of getting murdered by a small gang of light fighters. However, if they bring a stealth bomber like an Eclipse, that equation changes very dramatically. And the way to counter the bomber is to bring fighters, right? So it's, you know, each of them in the I guess you could say in the ecosystem has a role to play. And as long as we stay within our roles, the combat will feel a lot more exciting. People will have roles to do. People will be able to contribute to the battle in their own way, in an effective way. Because the previous system we had, multi-crew ships just get kited at long range. The velocity of the weapons can't get there. And we have a situation where light fighters reign supreme, right? Where acceleration is king. So, my suggestion, like I said before, is I want SCM speeds to increase to around the 450 mark so that we have enough breadth of movement, we can execute on lead turns, we can fly defensively, we can understand the team play dynamic, which is the best part about the previous flight model that we ever had, right? So we're taking the best part about the previous flight model and we're bringing it into master modes, because the current tuning, and this is what I want to be very clear with here, is I'm very happy with master modes. You know, even though there's some people on Twitter who are just misrepresenting what I'm saying, I can't control that. But what I'm saying is Master Modes is a win. Master Modes is a win for all of Star Citizen, including all its players. But the tuning right now is too limited, and it doesn't allow for the skill ceiling to really flesh out and for people to really dive into their ships properly. This is a problem, because the problems that the 1% of people who are having right now will become the majority's people's problems later on. I understand that we want to have the game accessible to as many people as possible, and I'm all for that. I really am. But in order for us to have a game that survives the test of time, we need to have gameplay that feels deep and is deep. In order for that to happen, we need a little bit higher speeds. The addition of the G-Lock system that we're going into and all the different tunings, it all needs to mesh together. The increased weapon velocity is a good thing because we have cone fire to have the distance control that we need. For the most part, Master Modes is a big success, right? And my visceral reaction yesterday is not based on the Master Mode's fundamental mechanics. In fact, I think that you guys did a really, really good job. And I'd like to thank Yogi, the rest of the team, DJ, all you guys out there working on it. You guys did a really great job. Thank you so much for actually putting this together, right? My gripe has always been the way the game feels, the way the game responds, and that's based on tuning, right? But tuning can be changed, and hopefully you guys can iterate on the system as best you can. So, these were my 2 cents. Understand, folks, for you guys that are watching, if you got lost in the weeds a little bit, don't worry, they have a whole flight series on YouTube that you can take a look at. But a lot of it will be changing, right? Which is exciting, and I'm all for that, right? So, thank you, CIG, for hopefully listening. I really hope this message gets to you guys. I just want to say again, thank you so much for putting this together. I'm very hopeful for the future of Star Citizen. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I think your head's in the right spot, guys. I think you've absolutely nailed it on 98% of what's going on here. I just would like to see the tuning in a place where, I said before, the game has that breadth of movement where you can have all that interplay. You can have those dynamic engagements. You can have those lead turns, those merges, because flight combat feels great when you have good merging, good defensive flying, because now we have the offense tackled. We have the differences between SCM and afterburner modes tackled. We now have the advantage going towards somebody who manages their boost properly and is able to close the distance on someone who may be trying to be too defensive, right? But we don't want what we have currently right now, because even for rookie pilots, it's going to become so difficult for them to be able to step into being a better pilot if they're limited so quickly at that ceiling, right? So in a game where there are no RPG elements and the element is you yourself, I advocate very strongly. And I think a lot of I cannot speak for other PvP organizations, but I've spoken to a lot of guys that I know very closely who are in PvP, and a lot of them feel as I do, right? But it's up to them to come out and have their own opinion, right? So just to be clear, just to reiterate, MasterModes, big success. Really happy you guys did it. And I think it's a really, really great step forward. I just would like the tuning to have a little more breadth of movement. Let's bring that SCM speed up to around 450 and keep our afterburners at 550. And let's see where the game feels at that point. That's all I got for you today, guys. I hope this kind of cleared things up. So if you find someone out there misrepresenting what I'm saying, or, trying to paint me in a bad light, guys, just come straight to the channel. See for yourself. This is my opinion about it. I'm very excited for the future of Star Citizen, and I will see all you folks on September 2nd for the Abno Esports final tournament, and hope you guys come and show some support for the very beginnings of esports in Star Citizen. Okay, that's all I got for you today, guys. Have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. I was Avenger1, and I'll see you next time.